Good morning. It's Christopher Taylor on the top of the hill with Sovereign Harmony Astrology. Hope you're doing well. It's Sunday, March 29th. We're going to do the astrology for the 29th of March through about April 4th, right into Easter weekend here. And plenty of stuff going on. I want to split it up. Our big player this week is definitely the full moon in Libra. The energy will be with us the entire week. And it really wraps in a lot of the other stuff that's going on. So I want to talk about the other stuff. Then we'll wrap it all up with that full moon in Libra. So just to reiterate, we have all the personal planets moving in lockstep with each other, with Venus out ahead, then the Sun, then Mars, and then we have Mercury, which is direct now, and that is the caboose in Pisces still. Venus is approaching the end of Aries. It was the first planet to enter Aries. It's kind of introducing all the personal planets to this new butterfly era, which is as they enter Aries. Okay. Now, Venus tomorrow is going to actually enter Taurus. Taurus is a sign that Venus rules, so it's its domicile. That's what they call it. And so that really strengthens Venus. Whereas Venus in Aries, it's a little bit hard to contain, hard to control, kind of can fly off the handle a little bit. But Venus in Taurus, very contained, very grounded, okay? And it will form a square to Pluto later this week. And that's going to be wrapped into that full moon, like I said. So I'm going to talk about that later, but it will be the first personal planet to enter Taurus and form that square to Pluto in Aquarius. Just wanted to make that point. Mercury at the back of that caboose, okay, it's finishing up some aspects that it created during the Mercury retrograde. Okay, it came out of retrograde here on March 20th with the equinox, and now it is finishing up a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter went direct in Cancer March 10th. Now Mercury is direct. Now for the first time since they started back in February when they made the first trine to each other, Mercury in Pisces to Jupiter in Cancer, there was some retrograde action going on. Jupiter's in retrograde, Mercury's in retrograde, okay? This is the first of the three trines where they're both direct. Okay, so we have done some of this deep diving with Mercury in Pisces during that retrograde. Jupiter now direct in Cancer. So on an emotional level, as far as the bigger picture goes, there's more of a sense of feeling what's about to emerge. It was foggy from about mid-February till about this point. Now the clarity is coming. So more clarity in the mind for the bigger picture, for how things are laying out in front of us and how the small decisions we make are going to lead to that larger landscape, okay? So it's finishing up with that. Now, Mars in Mercury is still in Pisces, even though Venus is entering Taurus. So we've got the Sun alone in Aries after tomorrow, right? Next week, that is when things really get into high gear. So we could think of like Mercury retrograde as like we were sitting idle. Mercury turns direct. Now we're like in first, second gear. Okay, we get to next week, April 9th specifically. That is when not only Mercury exits its shadow, but Mars will enter Aries. Mars' home is in Aries, just like Venus, its home is in Taurus, one of its homes anyway. Mars, one of its homes is Aries. So we're going to have two planets in their domicile. This is really strong for focus, which is like the opposite of that fogginess that we've been through in this Mercury retrograde. Focus and directed action, okay? And so that's when we click into like fifth gear. Okay, all the planets are direct, but it's really on April 9th when Mars enters its domicile in Aries and when Mercury is out of its shadow and only a few days away from entering Aries itself. I think it enters Aries on the 14th, so 5 days later. So that is when we kick into fifth gear, okay? But we'll be in fifth gear with Venus and Taurus, so there's a grounding aspect. So Venus kind of on a heart level allowed us to like open up to the new, okay? And now it's the first planet to help us ground that new into something practical, all right? So that's the kind of train of the personal planets. We were also coming off of yesterday's exact sextile between Saturn in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. Very, very large implications for that. So that goes back to the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn in January of 2020. And we all know what happened weeks later, right? And that's coming from Capricorn, top down. This is government, institutions, lots of force from the top down, and of course we had the lockdowns, right? Now we have the first major aspect between them happening right now, and it's going to be with us all week, and it gets tied into the full moon as well. So we'll talk about that and wrap it all up. But what this really has to do is, it has to do with us, it's Saturn and Aries, it's personal responsibility, setting our own boundaries, and how does that, how do we take advantage of the opportunity to transform ourselves for the transforming society in front of us, okay? So, with that top-down attempt back in 2020, we could see some of that going on now. This whole idea of lockdowns because of, not enough fuel, for example. There was a scare with like meningitis or something like that that kind of came and went. We've got these Soros-funded protests this weekend, which is really about dividing people, right? But what Saturn in Aries is saying is stop being divided. Get into your sovereignty, set your boundaries. Don't let yourself get pulled into that kind of division and fear, okay? So this full moon is going to be testing that. This full moon, it's in Libra. It's squaring that Jupiter in Cancer, that same Jupiter in Cancer that Mercury is forming that trine to. And it's pulling in Saturn because the sun is close enough to it in Aries. And it's also pulling in this Venus square to Pluto. Venus and Taurus squaring Pluto and Aquarius, like I mentioned before. And so which means it's also pulling in that Saturn-Pluto sextile. So the Saturn-Pluto sextile, as well as the Venus-Pluto square, because Venus is the ruler of Libra, ruler of the full moon, in other words. And so it's all kind of working together. And so what this is saying is, the way I look at it is this is sort of a test of our growth, okay? So if Jupiter in Cancer has been this period of emotional growth, and we've been setting our boundaries with this whole Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, Saturn and Aries specifically, and how we fit into the society with Pluto and Aquarius, okay? This is our test. We might see people coming into our lives that test our boundaries. That test our emotional growth. We've maybe gone through the motions of the growth, but have we been in a situation where we can kind of prove that, oh, wow, I've got a new boundary. I will not let myself get pulled out of balance, because that's what this Libra full moon wants to do, is test our ability to balance, right? So how do you get tested for your balance? You get pushed out of balance to see how you can balance yourself, right? So that's what this full moon has to do with this week, is a test of our balance. We might get shoved, but it's okay, because we have been working on this emotional growth. We have been working on setting our boundaries. So we're ready for it. Push us. It's a hit me with your best shot kind of thing, right? We're ready to stand our ground. And so that means whether it's coming from external authorities, trying to force us into fear and division, we're going to hold our sovereign ground, okay? Not get swept up into groupthink, not get swept up into my group is right, your group is wrong kind of stuff, okay? That is what this Libra full moon is testing us on. And because of the ruler, Venus in Taurus, squaring Pluto in Aquarius, this is asking for permanent change in our values based on this. So from that, it's kind of like the buck stops here. And from now on, this is what I consider valuable. And this is what I can let go. Okay. And it's this test that helps us to see, wow, I've been hanging on to things that really need to go for me to really operate in this new world as I am now with my new set of boundaries. Okay, so big transformations that are permanent. That's the key with that Venus square Pluto being the ruler of this testing full moon in Libra. Anyway, we will leave it at that. If you have any questions, please let me know. Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you are looking for a personal reading, I do those as well. We can see where this Saturn, Neptune falls in your chart, where this full moon falls in your chart, everything that's going on, how it affects you personally, so you can get a better understanding of your sovereign presence within it all in the bigger picture. Anyway, so you can reach out to me for that as well. Other than that, have a great week. Enjoy your Easter if you celebrate, or Passover, or whatever it is. And I will see you next Sunday on the Hill.